Welcome to everybody. Thank you all for coming along to this Republic of Work Lunch and Learn. I've attended so many of these over the last few years and I've learned so much. So it's great and it's strange being on the other side of it. But just a little bit about myself. We go back a slide there. So a little bit about me. So I have lived in New York, in Italy, in Galway, in the UK, but I'm a Cork girl at heart. So I always knew that I would come back here to settle down about 2 minutes away from my parents and my sisters. Like, definitely know I'm very privileged in that right throughout the lockdown, I was within 2 kilometers of the most important people in my life. So I worked in book publishing for 13 years. And I got my start with Summersdale in the UK. It was a 3-month unpaid work experience placement, but luckily for me and my bank balance, after about 6 weeks, they offered me a full-time job. So I ended up staying there for about 2 years and learned so much until I decided I wanted to come home to Cork. And when I came back to Cork, I started working with the Collins Press, which is a book publishing company, non-fiction publishing based here in Cork. So when I started, I was an admin assistant who needed to do a little bit of PR and a little bit of marketing. And those little bits of PR and marketing suited me down to the ground because at the time, all my experience was in editorial and I had zero experience in PR and marketing. So as you can imagine, it was a steep learning curve. But what I learned, to my surprise a little bit, was that I love the PR and marketing side of things. I love that buzz about hearing an artist or an author on the radio or seeing a feature on them in a paper that came about because I pitched it successfully. I still get that buzz. I still get excited by it. Over the years with Collins Press, I worked my way up to media and marketing executive, and my role included creating the company's social media accounts. Now, social media was still in its infancy at that time for business use, but I could see the potential for reaching our audiences without being dependent on traditional media. Books pages in newspapers are constantly being scaled back. So there was increasing demand for rapidly decreasing space, and socials meant that we and our authors could reach our readers directly. So after about 3.5 years ago, I decided I needed a change, and now I'm head of marketing and development with Triskel Arts Centre, as well as their wedding coordinator. So pre-COVID, we were holding approximately 600 events a year. And it doesn't really feel like we slowed down much since. Like, we had to close our doors on the 12th of March, 2020, and we held our first online concert on the 27th of March. It was Fionnuala Moynihan playing piano in her home in Dublin, recorded on her husband's iPhone and broadcast via Facebook. We since changed to online concerts that involved multiple cameras, videographers, streamed online. But what I'm really looking forward to is getting back to live in-person events. I've also been a member of Network Cork since 2012 and been on their committee since 2014 in various roles. So this is a volunteer run and a volunteer led organization. So everyone on the committee pitches in and gets involved in every aspect. I've learned so much about organizing and running events from my time with Network Cork. I've done everything from printing name badges to stuffing goodie bags. And since I was also president for a year, doing lots and lots of public speaking. So what is marketing? One thing you can say about marketing and about event planning is that there are lots of contradictions. There are lots of rules, and then there are lots of exceptions to those rules. On the one hand, you shouldn't do the same thing over and over because people like new, they like fresh, they like different, they get bored with the same old thing. And that's true for audiences as well as organizers. But on the other hand, nostalgia sells. So we've been showing the same 3 Christmas movies for the last 10 years in Triskel Cinema, and they've become part of people's Christmas traditions, from the wedding couple who are planning already to bring their kids to see the Muppet Christmas Carol, to the people who come to see It's a Wonderful Life and think, okay, now Christmas has started. This is the start of my Christmas season. I've suggested doing a new Christmas movie a couple of times, and people are always like, absolutely lovely, but you're still going to do the others, right? So contradictions, yes, in all of this, but if you get the basics sorted, if you get the basics right, then you will have more time and energy to be a bit more creative in terms of the promotion. So marketing is essentially relationships. It is about building, about developing, maintaining, and nourishing relationships with various groups of stakeholders. So there's your customers. So these are the people that you want to become your clients, your audience, as well as any media or any other organizations that can help you to promote your work and your event. When I worked in publishing, stakeholders included booksellers, librarians, festival organizers. For Triskel, because of the nature of the films we screen, I stay in contact with the university departments and societies. So for example, we contacted the Women's Study course in UCC when we were showing the film RGB about the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg, because it was appropriate to what they were studying and what they were learning. We also update language schools in the city because we show a lot of foreign language films. Yes, the students are here to learn English, but having lived in Italy and been absolutely shattered by that whole learning by immersion, everyone needs a little bit of home every now and then. So stakeholder relationships are key, and key to any good relationship is communication. This means getting the right information to the right people at the right time. When I was with the Collins Press, one thing I always tried to do was to phone local bookshops when we had local media coming up. Ideally, with enough notice that they could order the book before the coverage. But even when that didn't work out, it meant the booksellers were prepared when customers arrived in the bookshop looking for that book. It meant then that, and not every customer remembers all the details about the book. I mean, I've done it myself. I've walked in and said, I heard this interview with the guy. I'm not sure of his name. I'm not sure of the title. And the booksellers are amazing. They will absolutely find your book for you. But if we can alert booksellers about what's coming up, they know, which author is on which radio station or in which paper, then they can help that customer to get the book, which means they get a sale as well as earning goodwill with their customer. So the right info at the right time varies from person to person and also from time to time. For an event, you need to give your attendees enough time to plan ahead, but not so much time that they forget that they booked the event. For book launches, we always advised authors that we would send invitations 2 weeks ahead of an event. Enough time to plan, but not so much time that the email gets lost in their inbox or the printed one gets stuck under yet another restaurant menu that was stuck in your letterbox. So you need to work out your timeline. Working out your timeline is absolutely key, and it is sometimes terrifying because then you realize that you should actually have started pushing your event about a month ago. But anyway, what I always do is I work backwards from the date of my event. So your event date and your time will depend on your industry. If you're a coach giving a workshop on time management, then you're probably aiming for midweek. For Triskel, our music events tend to be on Friday and Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Network Cork always meet on the first Wednesday of every month. This means that members can plan ahead. They can mark that day as busy in their calendar without having to wait for any speaker or theme announcements. So we'll say you have an event date of the 27th of July. So you want to start your actively promoting from at least 2 weeks ahead of that. And this is actively promoting. This is not gathering all of your information. All of that should be done by this stage. This is where you're actively contacting media, you're pushing to your audience, and you're really trying to see those sales start to take up in those 2 weeks. We're always lastminute.com. I do it myself in Cork. You will always see a flurry of sales in those last few hours before an event, but ideally you want to have a nice ticking over regularly in those 2 weeks. So timing, again, is everything. If you're emailing invitations, if you're emailing information, you need to factor in the right time to reach people. Pre-COVID, we used to send a Triskel Cinema newsletter, and it was a weekly newsletter we would send on a Thursday morning. And we always found that sending it between 10 and 11 o'clock got the best results. It got the best open rates, got the best click rates. If we got delayed for whatever reason and we couldn't send until the afternoon, then those click and open rates went way down. Partly because everybody was used to getting that cinema newsletter in the morning, but also partly because around 11 o'clock is a good time for people to take a bit of a break. They're going to grab a cuppa, they're going to sit down and maybe take a look at some non-work related emails. Now, this timing will depend on your industry. So more business related newsletters will perform better earlier in the week. For Triskel, it's all about entertainment. So we contact people in the latter half of the week when they're sliding towards the weekend and they're starting to make plans. So using a newsletter provider like MailChimp or Constant Contact or any one of those is a great idea. You can create professional looking newsletters very easily, and they manage all the boring admin stuff like the bouncing emails and the unsubscribes. Plus, you can see how your newsletter is performing, what links are going popular, what revenue you've raised from these newsletters. So you can do A/B testing, you can check different times, and you can see what works for your audience, because every audience is different. Lots of these platforms do have free options, so they're definitely worth checking out. So before you get to that, you need to design your graphics, your invitations to send out, and you need to have them ready by at least 3 weeks ahead. Ideally before this, but if not, 3 weeks ahead. Canva is a great tool for designing graphics. There are free options and you can do a lot with it. You can build up a little bit of a brand template that you can use for all of your events, which is great. You get to do a lot with it. It's very intuitive to use and you get very clean, very professional looking graphics out of it. If you are printing anything, make sure you factor in the time it takes to print stuff. And also, if you're posting those stuff, you need to factor in the time to stuff the envelopes, stick the stamps, get them to the post office, potentially deal with any delays. Make sure you factor all of this into your timeline. Get your press release ready by at least the 6th of July, by 3 weeks ahead of your event as well. Think about your audience. Think about what they read and where they get their news, and then tailor your press release for those outlets. The tone of the Irish Times, for example, is different to the website Yay Cork. Now, journalists can and will tweak your press release to suit their outlet, but the less work you give to them to do, the more likely it is that your stuff will land. Again, this is all about relationships. This is about knowing who to contact and when. Yay Cork, for example, it's Cork focused. So anyone contacting Katie about something happening in Donegal is not likely to be successful. And it's not because Katie is not personally interested in that Donegal news, but her remit is Cork stuff, is to give news about what's happening here in Cork. The same would be true if I contacted a sports journalist about a music event happening in Triskel. They may be personally interested, but they're not going to be able to do anything about it professionally. Now, if you have a personal relationship or friendship with that sports journalist and you need to contact somebody in another area of that paper or that station, then by all means use that contact and ask your friend for advice on who they should contact and how they should get in contact with them. Target your outlets and your journalists. Don't do a blanket BCC to every single journalist on your list. You are going to be much better off picking 6 journalists who will do pieces rather than contacting 600 and still getting just those 6 pieces. Bear in mind that, and I'm just going to scroll. Bear in mind that journalists are absolutely inundated with news. Inundated. Shane Hegarty, former arts editor with the Irish Times, once told me that his inbox was like a waterfall. And sometimes he would take a day to go through his inbox, and a good day was when he got to 500 unread emails. So make your subject line really, really catchy, but also be prepared to get lost in that waterfall. Another good reason to target media is to build on that personal relationship or a connection. So Rachel Collins, who's the magazine editor of the Irish Times, once told me that she culls her inbox by going through and deleting anything that doesn't start with a "Hey Rachel," "Hi Rachel," or some sort of personal greeting, because it's more than likely going to be a BCC email from a publicist. She needs to know that the person contacting her has thought about why they're contacting her and how their news will add value to her readers, because that's what you need to think about when contacting media about your event. How will this event add value to their publication or their show? Like, we all know why we want to be featured, but why should they care? Like, if you can go to a journalist or a producer and say, your readers or your listeners will get ABC out of this because of XYZ, then you are one step closer to getting featured. It's worth starting to build these relationships before you need to cash in on them. So offer them something. Like, they're not stupid. They know that you're doing it for promotion, but offer something. So for example, Dermot and Dave on Today FM have a slot called Mind Yourself Now. And I was listening to it at one stage last year and thought, Niamh Brady, the productivity and time management coach, would be perfect for them. She was doing videos at the time about managing working from home during a pandemic. So very topical, very helpful. And I advised Niamh to contact them, which she did. And she got on the slot. And then they invited her back to do an event which was separate from their radio show. It was a Facebook and YouTube Live with several different experts, and Niamh was one of them. And they'll probably invite her back again because she brought value to their listeners. And if Niamh has any events or workshops coming up that she wants to promote, then she can contact them and ask them to plug it, and they'll be more likely to say yes because they know what their listeners will get from her advice. So timing, again, is everything when you're contacting journalists. You need to give them time to plan to include your piece. So if, for example, you want to get on the Neil Prendeville show on Red FM, very little point in contacting them at 9 o'clock because they're on air. They are focused on the show in front of them. They don't care that your event is really important to you. So getting them just after they get off air is probably a good time to catch them. So watch the on-air times. Also watch the on-shelf dates for printed papers. So things like the Echo, the Examiner, they're daily, they're going the whole time. But regional papers like, for example, the Cork Independent, they're weekly. Their on-shelf date is Thursday. So don't go anywhere near them on a Wednesday. They're too busy printing that damn issue. They are focused on that and they don't care about your news. They don't have any space for your news or for your event. So you need to build this into your timeline as well if you need to contact regional papers. And all of the studies show that people read their regional papers, they listen to their regional radio stations probably more than they do to the national ones. So it's definitely worth keeping those regional and those local media on your hit list of journalists to contact. Watch out for longer lead times. The magazines in the Irish Times and the Examiner, for example, have longer lead times than you would expect. That issue that you see in your paper on a Saturday has probably already been printed for at least a week by the time you see it. So there's no point in contacting Rachel on Tuesday expecting to get in the paper on Saturday. You need to give her 2 to 4 weeks notice to get anything in there. So when you're checking out the media outlets that will aid you in reaching your audience for your event, keep an eye out for those interview type articles. Like in the Echo, they have Person to Person or My Weekend, or Sunday Indo has Money Talks Q&A. Now in these, you are talking more about you than about your event, but you do get to plug something. Like if you look at any of these in the paper, there is always a little bit, generally in italics, that says, oh, you know, Gillian is doing XYZ, will be speaking here, there, whatever. Sometimes it's about an event, sometimes it's about your business, but the opportunity is there. You can also tweak your answers to suit your agenda. I did the question of taste in the Irish Examiner a while back and answered the questions about favorite gigs and exhibitions, etc., with stuff that was happening in Triskel. Now, it pretty much highlighted that I don't have a life outside Triskel, but I got my job done. I promoted the stuff that I needed to promote. So targeting will hold true for social media platforms too. Doesn't matter if TikTok is your favorite platform. If your audience isn't there, then you won't reach them. And vice versa is true. If your audience is on TikTok, you need to be there too. The late Natasha Lynch was wonderful about this. She was a grinds teacher. And as far as she was concerned, she had two audiences. She had the parents of the teenagers who needed the grinds, and then the teenagers themselves. Yes, the parents pay the bills, but Natasha said that she found that if she convinced the teenagers, then they would convince the parents. And parents are always going to be more willing to fork out money if they feel it won't be wasted on a surly teenager who's being forced to go to extra classes. So Natasha was on every social media platform the teenagers were on. She talked to them in class. She asked them what platforms they were on, and then she followed them there and she engaged with them on their level. Like, she left Facebook because no teenager worth their salt is going to be on Facebook along with their grandparents. And she was embracing Snapchat before the rest of us even knew it was a thing. So next up, your event. So the event logistics, you have to get all of these pieces in place before you can start promoting. So where is it happening? Choose your venue carefully. At the moment, the vast majority of events are taking place online, which means we can get to events in Roscommon just as quickly as we can to events in Cork. Choose your platform. Zoom has risen to the challenge of the last 16 months. At this stage, most people are aware of it and are comfortable with it and all the buttons, even if some of us still forget to mute or unmute ourselves at times. If it's an in-person event, choose an appropriate venue. Hotels are set up for this presentation type events. They have the screens, they have the projectors, they have the mics, the podiums, they have the tech to connect all the laptops. They can also provide food and drink. Unusual venues sometimes get a greater response purely for that nosy factor. But remember, you'll likely need to organise a lot more logistically. During my year as president of Network Cork, I held one event on the business of books, and we held it in Vibes and Scribes bookshop on Lavitt's Quay. And people loved it because it was different to the usual hotel venue. But we did have to bring in chairs and microphones, which drove the cost up a bit, but it was totally worth it because people loved this something different and it suited the theme. I had 5 speakers. I had a bookseller, a publisher, a librarian, I had a festival organizer, I had an author, and they were able to speak on different areas of the business of books and their career paths within those different areas, which appealed to the members of Network Cork. It's a different area of business that many hadn't previously considered. Also, for in-person events, bear in mind that something like parking will have an impact. Parking that's free and on-site will always be more attractive than the parking that costs you a fortune and involves a 10-minute walk to the venue. Time matters again. If your event is in person and city centre, then 6 p.m. isn't always the best time because of traffic. Now, you won't please all the people all the time. Pre-COVID, 6 p.m. city centre would have suited me perfectly because I was based in Triskel and could just stroll down whenever suited me. But now that I'm working from home, I'd be reluctant to head to town during rush hour. Be careful of your time. Will your event be free or will it be paid? If it's free, is booking essential or can you simply turn up? Be aware that for free events, you will not get full attendance from everyone who books. We always advised authors that approximately 40% of invitees will actually turn up on the night. And I remember one incident during my first year with Triskel. We had Cranún an Óg in June, and this is a nationwide festival for children and young people that is led by the city and the county councils. And one main requirement is that all the events have to be free. So we decided to show The Never-Ending Story. Great nostalgic film, lovely. Triskel Cinema has a capacity of 150, and we booked out at least a week in advance. I was delighted with myself. I had only just started with Triskel. Here I was selling out events. It was fabulous, except that on the day, only 42 of those 150 people actually showed up. We had other people show up who hadn't booked, but we couldn't let them in in case the ticket holders came. So we decided from then we weren't going to let people pre-book free events because it was too much of a risk. So we tried that strategy again later in 2018 when we were chosen for European Cinema Night. So this is funded by Europa Cinemas and involved us doing another free screening of a film. And what we decided to do with this was free tickets, but people couldn't book their tickets until 11 o'clock on the morning of the actual event. And our reasoning behind this was, if they book it at 11, surely they won't have forgotten about it by 7 o'clock. Our strategy paid off. We got 130 out of our 150 people actually showed up on the night. Now, you won't get maximum capacity. There's always going to be something that happens. People will get stuck in traffic. They'll have a crappy day at work. Something will happen with a kid or a family member or a friend. But you need to be able to maximize your attendance. And one way that we got this with this European Cinema Night was, this was in our communication right from the very start. We pushed the event, we promoted it, we told everybody about it, but we made it clear right from the start that you could only book tickets from 11 o'clock on the morning. So we didn't have anybody trying to book tickets, feeling frustrated, whatever. They knew exactly what was happening. They could put reminders in their phones, in their calendars, whatever, to go on and to book at 11 o'clock. And it definitely worked out for us. Another thing you need to consider as part of your event logistics is, how will your attendees book your event? Will you use something like Eventbrite or your website? Do they need to email you to reserve a place? What about payments? Eventbrite is great because it looks after so much. You simply fill in the fields and it formats everything. And you can set up reminders for attendees. You can email attendees directly from the platform. You can add information to the confirmation email. So parking, for example, if you've got unusual parking, if it's not going to make sense, or if you need attendees to bring anything or to do anything prior to the event, you can tell them here. You can also use it to create attendee lists and to check people in so you know how many people actually showed up. Plus, events on Eventbrite are discoverable across the country. So you need to think about all of this carefully to make it as easy as possible on yourself, to cut down on the manual side of things so that you can focus on the fun part of events. Now, in order to build all of this event stuff, you need to get a few assets in place so that you can start promoting everything. So your assets, you need a good photo. So this is the graphic that Republic of Work used to promote this particular event. Now, this is a template that they use for these lunch and learns, which is a very clever way to do it. You look at their Insta feed, you automatically, these jump out at you and you can tell this is a lunch and learn, I'm going to want to do it. All the information you need is on this graphic, including a very lovely photo of me, which was taken by the very amazing Lucy Poulier. Now, before I got photos done with Lucy, I would crop photos from Facebook. Now, they were generally okay because they were generally from Network Cork, so I had generally made a bit of an effort, but they weren't great. I was cropping somebody else out of the background, or the lighting was a bit weird. The other thing is, if you take a photo from Facebook, from a website, it will not be high enough quality for print. So you will not be able to send that photo to a paper to promote your event. Action shots are also great. So I see Fiona Kennedy is on the call with us today. So Fiona singing, performing with her band, hopefully soon with a full and enthusiastic audience, would be great. Ingrid with coaching. You could encourage people, a couple of friends, drag them along for a photo shoot, get them all to pretend that they're in a workshop. Lots of lovely, smiling, happy people learning, which will help you to advertise what exactly it is you do. So these are really, really helpful to have and definitely worth getting. So your bio needs to be up to date. This is the blurb and the description, and it includes my bio in this. So the bio for you should only include information that is relevant to the event you are running. It doesn't matter how proud you are of that trophy that you got for that 3-legged race when you were in 3rd class. Unless it's relevant to the event, don't include it. It needs to be it doesn't have to be long, but it does need to be engaging and informative. Same with your blurb or your description. This tells your audience what they can expect from the event. How do you do this? You keep it nice and short. You ask lots of questions. You tell them they're going to find out the answers. This is telling your audience what you can expect. So keep it nice and tight, nice and short, but nicely engaging as well. Be aware that you are going to be sharing this on social media platforms. We have something like an 8-second attention span now. So you need to capture people's attention really, really quickly. You can include a running order along with your description if appropriate. So for example, back when Network Cork could organise in-person events, we included a running order to give people, particularly new members or potential new members, an idea of what to expect. Because Network Cork is a networking organisation, we always start our events with informal networking. But if you're not aware of this, then all the chatting and the mingling that's happening at the start may not make sense when you're waiting for the speaker to start. But be careful with running orders. Give yourself a bit of space, a bit of leeway, because everything will take longer than you expect. Getting 100 women to stop talking and take their seats will realistically take longer than 5 minutes. A speaker may turn up late. Technology will inevitably let you down. So once you have everything in place, you have your assets, you know how people will book, you know where it's on, you know how much it's going to cost. You put all of these together, you have your press release, you have your graphics, you start actively promoting. And this is where you are actively promoting to get those bums on seats, to get the audience that you deserve. You put a lot of work into gathering all these bits. Sometimes it may not pay off. In Ireland, the weather has a lot to answer for. Hot, sunny weather means everyone's outside, stripped off with beers and 99s. Raining weather means no one is venturing outside. But it can also be because somebody had a crappy day at work, their kid was sick, there's a football match on. So many events happening in Cork every day, and we are truly spoiled for choice. So that is why it is absolutely key to target your audience carefully, to target the media that will help you reach that audience, to be clear in your communication so that everyone knows what they can expect, to engage with your audience and to nourish the relationships that will help you to grow. And in the spirit of event marketing, we have Triskel Courtyard happening from Thursday. It is 38 shows with 21 acts over 3 weeks. And I do have to, like, full disclosure, I'm not following any of the guidelines that I've just spoken to you about, because we announced the program for this last Thursday. The first concert is the day after tomorrow, and tickets for the first week went on sale yesterday. This is because we have to wait until the tent and the tables and the stage are in place to know if our theoretical seat map will match actual reality. So I'm going to find out that after this event. But that's all part of marketing events. You need to be able to expect the unexpected and make the most of what you have when you have it. So thank you all for listening. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you so much, Gillian. That was fantastic. So if anyone has any questions, you can either unmute yourself and ask, or you can pop them into the chat box. And I'm also popping a link into the chat box there if you have any feedback for events you'd like to hear in future, and if you like how you find it to log on today. So if you fill that out, that would be fantastic. And yeah, we'll just open the floor for questions now.
Just want to say thank you, Gillian. That was so good, so informative. Lots of hints and tips. And I think I said it to you beforehand. Yeah, I'm logged on twice here. This is actually, sorry now. I might.
That should work. Oh, there we are.
You there?
I might be.
Yes, there you
that
are.
way.
I don't know how it kept my, can you hear me okay now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, sorry about that. It was probably awful feedback. I could hear it myself. No, I just really useful, lots of really good practical tips. And I think I said it to you before the event that I loved your title for this. And I was like, this is marketing in practice, because I just went, oh, you know, my event deserves attendees. I'm actually going to go on and figure out how to do that. So well done on that. And I think that's just really yeah, I love it. Showing and not just telling. It was really, really good. So how to write a catchy title.
That's it. That's it. And yeah, look, we all deserve to get great audiences for our events. We certainly put in enough time and effort into running them. And if nobody shows up, then nobody gets to hear all the wonderful things you say. So yeah, like, you know, the basics, get the basics right. And then you can do more creative stuff around it once you get all of these basics right. And your timeline, get your timeline sorted as soon as you can pick an event, and then you at least you know when you need everything by. And like if you're dealing with where if it's not you who's the speaker, so for example Angie, when she was organizing this event, she wanted me to get all of my information to her by the 18th of June. And I'm sure that built in some time for me to be stupidly late with my information, but that's something that you do need to factor in if you're dealing with outside people as well, that you may not get the assets or the information. I mean, I certainly know it from Triskel. Sometimes we get one photo of a person and we could get a press release that's from 2015. And the reason I know it's from 2015 is because they're talking about their new album that's coming out in 2016. And I'm like, okay, you need to update your bio. You need to kind of go through these things as well, but you make the most of what you have as well. And Canva is certainly a great platform to be able to help to, you know, come up with different graphics and all of that. But
Very true.
Yeah.
And we have a question in the chat box there from Fiona. So she said, fantastic, Gillian. Timing is everything. Have you any tips on finding the right people to contact within an organization? This is proving to be the trickiest thing for me.
it will depend on the organization. Sometimes it's trial and error. Sometimes getting your foot in the door, making contact with one person who'll just help you out, but also having your ask and making it very clear. So, you know, like if I go to the Irish Times and I'm like, oh, I've got all these events, there you go. But if I can go to them and I can say, got all of these events, this person is available for interview, these are examples of their previous interviews, then, you know, you're more likely to land. Like Niamh Brady getting on the Dermot and Dave show. She had been doing these videos on Instagram. So they were able to go on and see how she spoke and how she talked and get her that way. But Fiona, it's tough. It's making contacts and it's building relationships. And, you know, kind of once you get your foot in the door with somebody, you know, hopefully they'll be able to direct you to the right person. Sometimes they hide people as well. Check their website. Like, I don't know if it's anything in particular, like for when I was in book publishing, authors generally wanted to get in touch with us to submit. So we always had our submission guidelines on our website and would direct people there. So maybe check the website and see if they're like HR might be able to direct you. It may just be a very friendly receptionist who knows everybody and everything that's happening in the building. They might be the person to contact as well. Social media people, definitely worth asking them too, because they're supposed to.
Okay. Brilliant. Thanks a million, Gillian. Fantastic. Thank you.
Fab. And so we have another question in the chat box as well, which says, it's from Jessica, and she says, thanks, Gillian. Do you have any advice on tracking demographics of who's coming to your event so you can better know your target audience?
You should definitely have Google Analytics connected to your website. You can track your audience and your demographic straight from there. But I suppose before you organize an event, you need to know why you're organizing your event. Like, who is it actually for? Like Network Cork, we're aiming it at women in business. So, you know, we're probably not going to be contacting school kids, whereas the late Natasha Lynch would, that's her target audience. Anything else? Your social media is a great place as well. See who's engaging with you. check in your insights, you get audience insights in there, and then just ask questions. Ask questions from your audience, and that'll definitely help you to figure it out that way as well. I mean, Natasha definitely used her audience to identify where she should be to reach more audience, but you should know your business very, very well so that you can then try and find out where they go. Like in Triskel, we've lots of different audiences. So cinema people aren't necessarily folk music people. It's a little bit trial and error, but you go to where they are, you go to the different organizations and you figure it out that way. Sorry.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Gillian. So if we have any more questions, we'll take them now. Otherwise, we'll just give it another couple of minutes.
Okay.
Thank you so much for speaking.
Absolutely. So does anybody have any events coming up that they want to push?
We have one on Thursday, actually.
Yay, okay.
We have a
Tell us
D&I
all.
event on Thursday, so it's diversity and inclusion in the Irish context. So you'll be able to find it on our website if anyone wants to attend that.
Okay, brilliant.
So it should be really good. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, you definitely do a great
See, I
range.
might attend that now, and I mightn't have if you hadn't said that. So there you go.
Oh, I'm glad.
That it's word
I
of
have
mouth.
one as well, lads.
Oh, brilliant. Where are you going to be, Fiona?
Yeah. My one is not in Cork though. I'm playing in Fairbrook House and Gardens in Kilmeaden. It's on the Waterford-Tipperary border.
Lovely.
And I'm doing an outdoor concert there with 3-piece, myself and a cellist and a guitar player. So it'll be an afternoon gig. It's lovely gardens and you get nibbles and champagne and stuff as well. We're doing 2 concerts. So hopefully we'll get the weather, lads. If it was last week, it would have been brilliant.
I know, fingers crossed, but look, we're Irish. We should be used to dealing with rain at this stage. I know most of us aren't, but yeah. And Fiona, where can people get tickets? Is it free or is it paid for?
No, you'd have to go on to, I don't know, sorry, my camera is on, but it keeps going off. You get the tickets on Fairbrook House and Gardens website. She actually hasn't advertised it very well. She definitely needed now to come to this today and would have known. I'd say it's a core group of people that attend events every year. There's a concert in the gardens once a year, but you just look up their website and you can get tickets there, or tickets on the day, I'm sure.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I can see Jessica is doing music in the meadow, just picnics in the walled garden on Sundays in August and September, which sounds fabulous. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. And partnering with Cork Craft Month for Friday workshops in August. Yeah, the Cork Craft Month in August is going to be chock-a-block with events. So that is one that will be challenging because there's so much noise and it's similar noise. It's lots of crafty stuff reaching out there. But the benefit of that as well is that there's lots of people talking about craft stuff. So that news should hopefully kind of rise to the top. But again, look, read the newspapers that you believe your audience is reading, listen to the radio stations that you think they're reading, listening to, and figure out that way. Like drive time shows are great. You know, I know an author of ours in Collins Press wanted to get on the Joe Duffy show. Really wanted. He thought his book would be perfect for it and couldn't understand that Joe Duffy doesn't do interviews. So I was like, well, you know, if you can get a bit of a controversy going and get somebody else to phone Joe up and start shouting about something, then maybe we can get you on. But there's lots of ways to get media attention. What you need is to keep what Deirdre Waldron always calls your PR antenna on. So just keep yourself awake and alert for any opportunity that you can talk about your event or your workshop.
That's a very valuable bit to end on. Thank you very much, Gillian.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Angie.
Call it a day for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Take care, guys.
Thank you all. Bye. Best of luck.
Bye.